All right, welcome back for another 5 minutes here on CIH Media. Very excited to introduce our guest today. You know her. She reports from the sidelines for Fox Sports Wisconsin. Piper Shaw is here. Piper, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay out here in Southern California. How's the weather where you're at?
Um, I think it's snowing, maybe, or it's going to. It looks not well, but that's okay. It's fall in the
Well,
Midwest, at least we're not in Minnesota where they had like a blizzard.
we had Katie Emmer from NBC Sports Philadelphia on last week, and she was in the middle of a blizzard out there in Minnesota. So my thoughts are with you with all the snow headed your way. What's our topic going to be today?
I thought that we could talk a little bit about college hockey. I grew up in a college hockey town in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and I primarily cover college hockey for the Wisconsin Badgers now. So it's kind of my bread and butter, I would say, among other things.
Sounds like a perfect topic. You know, all the hoopla this past weekend was surrounding Big Ten football, but let's give Big Ten hockey some love. We're going to go ahead and put 5 minutes on the clock, and here we go. All right, so we know the season schedule hasn't quite been announced yet, but we know what the schedule is going to look like when they get back to play. It'll be some sort of a round-robin play, plus a little bonus with Arizona State mixing into the fray. What do you think about the Big Ten reaching out to the West Coast, where I'm located at, for some college hockey action?
I am really excited to see how it plays out because since they don't belong to a conference, I mean, last year they had such a good record overall because they're kind of pick and choosing who they're playing. And they have every right to do that. But then when they came and played Wisconsin last year, Wisconsin pulverized them despite having a far worse record. So I'm really interesting to see how it kind of plays out. I think it's cool that they've reached out to them, and especially considering that I feel like the vibe of Arizona State hockey really aligns with Big Ten conference hockey. So I'm excited to see how it goes because I'm interested to see if they'll be as dominant as they seemed in polls and in games when they're stuck into that conference.
Yeah, I mean, I love that they're expanding out here on the West Coast. It's good to have them go out there and play the quote-unquote big boys. When we talk about the Big Ten hockey season coming up, the conference tournament is going to look a little bit different, but something we've seen before in the past. The original format is returning for this year. It's a single elimination format. What do you think the fan reaction is going to be? I'm sure you've seen some of it already, to going back to that original format.
I think that people are excited, but it's tough because you have to play, your best game. Otherwise, you don't get that second chance. So it'll obviously move quicker, which is something that we need in the times that we are in the sports world. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm concerned about the Badgers in this, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's a new season, so.
The last two conference championships won by Notre Dame, the only non-traditional Big Ten school really in the 7-team conference. What do the Badgers have to do to overcome the Fighting Irish to capture a title?
That's a great question. It's hard to say. I mean, last year the Badgers have really switched up their roster. They've lost quite a few people to the pros or to transfers, and they have a lot of new players coming in, and I haven't been able to see them quite yet on the ice. So last year it seemed like, or last season, defense was just such a problem. They were great on the forecheck, but then they just had nothing, no defense, and also goalies, and they've brought in quite a few goaltenders. So I think that's the biggest piece for the Badgers. And Notre Dame is such a well-balanced team, or at least they were last season, where they could defend solidly. They were great on offense, and they have a great goaltender as well. So I would say that if the Badgers want a chance this year, it's really going to have to be in stopping shots and stopping goals.
There's been a Big Ten hockey conference tournament since 2014. Every team in the conference has reached the championship game at least twice, except for Michigan State. Old Sparty down there trying to get to the conference title game for the first time. What did the Spartans have to do to get through this wrecking ball of a conference?
I would say with Michigan State, when I've watched them play, they're a very good team. It just seems like they just kind of are inconsistent in games that they win and games that they lose, and they split a lot of series. So I would say I'm not an expert on Michigan State hockey throughout the years by any means, but I would say it seems like it's just kind of a consistency thing for them.
There have been 6 Big Ten championship games. Half of them have gone to overtime, which I'm sure has been quite exciting. What is it that seems year after year that these teams are always on the same competitive level?
I think people are just so hungry in the Big Ten conference, or rather the teams are. I've noticed, obviously I follow the Badgers the most, but when the Badgers are playing non-conference teams, they bring a more, it almost feels like a more strategic game, a more logical game. But when they're in the conference games, especially if it's like a series that they might split, it just seems so feisty. It really seems feisty, especially in those games against Penn State and Notre Dame. I feel like they all have such a emotional, reaction to playing within their conference, which makes sense because it brings passion to the conference and it energizes fans as well. So it's not necessarily like the worst thing in the world. But I would just say that there's just like this hunger and this determination to win that almost overrides like the actual gameplay sometimes, it seems.
All right, so we ran about 15 seconds over, which I'm totally fine with. We do this pretty much on the regular now. I should change it to 5 minutes and 15 seconds. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you before we ended this segment. Who do you think wins the Big Ten Conference this year?
Gosh, I hate to go against my team with the rivals, but I'm interested to see what Minnesota does this season. I think that Motzko has been in there for a couple years now, and last season after the winter break, they came back. They were hungry, they were fighting, they were ready. And because I grew up in St. Cloud, where Motzko used to be, I've seen him be able to build a loyal, logical, hungry team, and I'm interested to see how they come out of the gate. I would think that they'll fare well this season, hopefully.
Piper, thanks so much for being here. And everybody at home who's watching this, she's a great singer too. You might want to check her out on the interwebs. Look her up. Sounds good.
Oh, thank
Piper,
you.
thanks so much for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.